Hello, good morning. Thank you everyone for inviting the European Association for coming here in a new session of renewable gas in this pavilion, this event. I would like to start this presentation with a question. Are the biogases relevant in our energetic mix? First, I don't want to answer this question, but I prefer that with this information and the things that we're going to present today, that you can make your own opinion about this question, and you will find your own answer to this. So let's start. First, I would like to mention a few words about the European Association of Biogas. Many of you already know us, but for the ones that not, we represent to all the value chain of biogases in Europe, and we have more than 350 members as national members, and also companies and research organisms and other entities that are active in about the development of this industry. And we analyze the market in a European framework, and also to promote legislation that is going to promote the development of this industry. Also, my department, we work very hard to spread the knowledge about biogases to companies that maybe are not part of our sector. They don't understand our industry. Talking about this European context, what is the current situation? Well, right now, in this moment, we are in an energetic transition that, of course, must be in the path towards the sustainability, but it should be resilient as well, to tackle problems like the waste management or the management of emissions in the agro-industry. This transition is supported by three main pillars. We call it the trilennium, energetic trilennium. The last commission was focused on the sustainability, and it was very important to fight the climate change and the GHG, and is still very important. And it was very important as well to ensure the safetiness of the system resilience, and of course to be as independent as possible from an energetic point of view. But also another important pillar is to make it very affordable of our energetic system. With the new commission, there was a transition towards more conservative positions, also based on the geopolitical situation that we are living right now, and we all know, and have to talk about this much. And that made this trilennium to be inverted. So the priorities are the same. The sustainability is still very important, but we see that right now is more important the resilience and safetiness and the supply security, and also the cost of the energy. And in 2025, what did it mean? Well, this year, as we can see in the right part, is that the publishing of several packages, law packages from the European Commission. The first of them is the Clean Industrial Deal, is giving visibility to the competitiveness in our industry towards industries that should be an engine like the renewable energy industry, so it has an impact in the biogas. In second place, we have a new update of the Repower EU, and it is trying to achieve the total independence of our supply of natural gas that is coming from Russia. And this update, we have reduced this dependence, but now we want to have zero dependency, and also to have biogas as one of our main goals or mechanisms that can help us to achieve that goal. And also in 2040 climate target, just before this summer, it was a new package, and it was about reducing the GHG, but it's in the third place if we compare it to number 1 and 2. that they were published before in a priority order, let's say. But the sustainability is still very important. And as a European Association of Biogas, we for sure support it. And at the end of this year, it's going to be published the EU bioeconomy strategy. This is going to be very important for our industry because when we talk about the sustainability of our biogases, we are not only talking about the reduction of emissions and renewable energy. We are also talking about circular economy that is more a wider concept. It is part of the bioeconomy of the European Union and has a lot to add to the bioeconomy. And this is going to be published in the December 12th. Biogases have a lot to add to all these pillars in this transition. One of the questions that we are arising when we're talking about biogases is what's the cost of production nowadays? This information, we have to be careful about that. It is just like an illustration, right? Because the prices are changing, it depends on many factors, so it's not definite. But comparing this, we can see on the left side that the price of natural gas is around 30 euros for megabyte. And if we add the price of EU ETS, it goes up to 47 euros megawatts per hour. And then we have the biomethane that is right now, it's a very high, wide range. It goes from 54 to 125 euros, but it depends on the raw material, the size of the plants, and many aspects. But if we are taking into consideration this range, it doesn't fluctuates much from the natural gas prices. And then we have the green hydrogen, and the price goes up farther than 207 euros per megawatt hour, and we expect to have it a very high price for the future. So this is more or less like the result. We have a natural gas price that is quite low, but it's going to have a huge impact by the EU ETS. It's going to rise during the next years, and we have the biomethane price that it has a great cost that can range a lot depending of many factors, but we expect that to go lower, 20% lower in the next years, and then we have the green hydrogen that we know is very high. In all these scenarios in the future, we are thinking about the necessity of having electrons and the green energy in the future, but they all include gas. So this is very important to consider. There is not scenarios without gas. There are no scenarios without gas. This is what we are going to talk right now. Another question that arises is, are there enough biogases in Europe, in our energetic system, or is it going to be in the future? There is a study that was published last year from House that is analyzing this potential. And here, this data that you can see here, this data is referred to European Union with the 27 state members. But if we talk about the whole Europe, like UK or Norway or Switzerland, is not included in this potential. We are about producing 19 BCM of biogases in the European Union, and in Europe is around 22. And in 2040, is the date that we are more or less thinking about because of this 2040 goal. We are talking about the potential that we can reach is more than 100 BCM of biogases in European Union. The green part is about the anaerobic digestion, which is a very mature technology, and it has been used since 50 years ago in Europe. It's not new at all. And the yellow area is the gasification, that is a more modern technology that is launching right now in Europe, but it has huge potential, as we can see here. For 2040 panorama, based on this production of biogases, it could be supported this demand by the European Union that we are thinking for 2040 will be covered by 80%. The supply. So it's important in Spain that for this 2040, Spain will be in the third place of the production potential in Europe. So there's a huge potential in Europe, but mainly in Spain. farther than the potential, what's the current concrete position of biomethane in Europe? For this part, and it was published the last data in this year that we collected after the data collected by the national companies to know what the situation in the current market in Europe. Sorry, this goes a bit slow. Okay. We know that currently we have more than 1,600 plants of biomethane in Europe. If we see this graphic, we can see the evolution has been the development represented in the plants in Europe during the last 10 years, 20 years, and you can see that the dark part are the existing ones, and the light green was this year. As you can see, the last renewable gas enforcement law has improved the sector and to raise the number of plants. And in 2022, there was the fear that the supply chain could have a negative impact in the sector, but we didn't see a big impact in the number of plants. But in 2024, there was a small recession in growing, and this could be related to the important leading countries that were ending the support mechanisms, that it was a little bit of uncertainty about what was going to happen, but that made it slowing down the growing of these new plants. If we talk about the installed capacity of the production volumes, we can see that installed capacity of biomethane nowadays in Europe is 7 BCM. This table is analyzing the evolution during the last 3 years and is comparing the volumes produced in Europe compared to the ones outside of Europe, but outside and inside the European Union. As we can see that the majority of the biomethane are produced in the European Union, and during the last 3 years, the installed capacity has increased more than 45%. The number of plants per country is important to see, to compare the situations with Spain. You can see there is a very visual reflection of biomethane plants in Europe. You can see that in France there are more than 760 plants, and the country that has darker color has more density of plants. Of course, we have historical leading countries like Italy, for example, and UK and Poland. But Denmark, they don't have such a high number, but they are leading the sector because the plants are very big, are very large. So we can see that the average size plant is around 483 nanometers cubic, and in Spain we have like 15, so we have a huge potential in the industry, but it's still launching in Spain comparing it with other countries. So we can take an example of all these other countries like Denmark, France, and Italy to see what they helped them and how they could reach this accelerating increase. I think tomorrow we have some speakers from Denmark. Okay. Also, it's important to consider the grid injection. Nowadays, in the majority of the plants, more than 85% of the plants are already injecting in the grid, the gas distribution gas grid. And you can see all of these plants where are located here in this map. There is a small percentage that we don't have much information from. We don't know if they inject or not, but there's another percentage that we know they are not injecting. But even though they don't inject in the grid, they can use the biomethane, for example, for the transportation means. Apart from this number of plants analyzing and volume production, we also has research about the investments for the next years, and we have collected some information from our members and the companies that are working in this sector and their projections of investments for next years. And there's around 28,000 millions of euros that is going to be used for biomethane for 2030. What's the translation of this? It's 7.3 BCM extra installed capacity in Europe, 900 plants of biomethane, and very important, the main receptors of investment, talking about countries, are going to be first Spain and secondly Denmark and the UK. Here in this slide, we are including how is divided by country, but we are running a little bit late. But Spain is the main receptor of private investment of 4,800 millions for this sector. So this country is not also has potential, but during the next year is going to receive amazing investments in this sector. We talked only about the renewable energy, but from ABA, we are highlighting the necessity not only about considering the biogas as a renewable energy, but more like a wider concept in which we have to talk about the valorization of the digestate and the organic fertilizers and the CO2 biogenic. And I'm going to stop a little bit about this, but I don't want to run out of time. The impact of the digestate. This is a table that represents in a very visual way what are the benefits of the using of the digestate compared to other techniques of waste treatment that are included, for example, in this anaerobic digesting compared to the composting, incineration, landfill, no treatment. And as we can see in the anaerobic digestion can solve many problems, for example, starting with retaking the nutrients and energy, also contributing to the health of the soil, and taking into consideration that more than 80% of the soils in Spain are degraded in Spain, with a very high possibility percentage of the desertation, and also is reducing odors and is a very safe product. Of course, we must know how to apply these techniques with the correct techniques. So this solution should not be a problem, talking about the contamination of the soil or the undersoil water, underground water. And talking about volumes, these are not the most current data. At the end of the year, we will talk more about the statistic data that has a special chapter about the digestate. But we know that we are producing 31 tons of digestate in 2022 that we could use as organic fertilizers. But why is this important? Because the digestate could substitute the use of nitrogen fertilizer, synthetic ones, that are the most used already nowadays. But we don't want to be dependent of the exterior. So the calculation based on the digestive volume could be substituted by substituting these synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, which are producing a very high percent of GHG. So what's the problem about this situation is that there is a European framework that is very complex. And from our association, we have a person that is only talking about and trying to learn and understand the European law regulations about the digestate and the uses. And it's not easy, because I know that in Spain, there is an extra layer of complication, because there is an interpretation that we understand as excessively strict about the European regulation of fertilizers use, and it could create problems with the value chain of digestate. As a good news is that we have the first strategy of the digestate use in Catalonia. And we not only support legislation that can support the valorization of the digestate, but not only the digestate, but another organic fertilizer. There are more legislations that should adapt to the new range of organic fertilizers that we could use nowadays. And we also support quality certificates that can support and value this product. But we talked about the digested. We also have to talk about the biogenic CO2. For us, it's more and more important. And last week, we published a report about the situation of the bio CO2 produced by the biomethane, biogases, and the upgrading to biomethane. It's about taking the biogenic CO2 out in order to have a more pure biomethane, and we could value this product. I'm talking about this bio CO2, so it's about a short cycle of carbon that is not adding emissions, is not having any emissions to the atmosphere compared to the regular CO2. So we evaluate, we can have even negative emissions. So as we can see here, we have done a calculation about the production potential of biomethane for 2040 and about how much CO2 we could capture. In 2040, for example, we could capture 89 tons of CO2. Why is this important? Because the EU, EC, has a goal about capturing the CO2 for 2040, and this capturing volume could contribute to 25% of this goal. So we have a technology of the biomethane that we know is stable and secure, and we could capture the bio CO2. But of course, that we need a legislation framework that should take into account this potential. And we asked for maybe a goal, among others, about a mechanism for capturing the bio CO2. And as we were saying, this is the situation of the bio CO2 production in Europe. We published last week, and this report is available for everyone. And we have around 125 biomethane plants in Europe that is already capturing bio CO2. And for next year, we have 25 more plants expected in the future. And we have here the volume of the CO2, bio CO2 currently that we have in Europe based on the data that we collected in ABA for this report that we presented last week. And as we can see, based on the evaluation, this bio CO2 is being used partly in greenhouses and also in the agro-industry, food industry, and also in drinks, beverages, and e-fuels. And there is a huge future for them. This is what's the global situation of the European market, and I would like to conclude by having a general message of what we're seeing in Europe is looking to 2040. We know this is going to be very complicated because to have a production goals, specific ones in a European level is very complex, but this is what we are asking. And also, we focus in this more wide framework about what biogas is representing, not about biogas, but the organic fertilizers. So we are asking to link it towards a roadmap in Europe and also to include national goals, national pledges. Also, I would like to focus a little bit in goals more directed to the Spanish market. 5 goals or recommendations that we think are important for the launch of the Spanish market, because we think there is a lot of potential and it's going to require a lot of investments and is launching. So it's important to have a very stable launching and sustainable, of course. It has seen that it's worked very well in other countries, having specific goals and binding goals in the long term. There is a roadmap presented in the national level and 5 roadmaps in the autonomous communities, and they have some ambitions, and they should be binding, of course, and some ambitions that should be significant. But it's true that in other countries that has worked very well are supporting mechanisms to help this industry that is starting, like in Denmark or France, grid injection of goals and 100% goal in 2030. So this could work in other leading countries in this sector. Secondly, is to simplify the permission processing, and is affecting in Europe and another renewable processes. It could last even 2-3 years or even up to 7 years. So this is a pity because it could stop many projects. And here in Spain, the third goal in Spain is very important, is to talk we talk about this to our Spanish members because they are concerned about the social licenses. The projects that are going ahead, sometimes they are stopped by the lack of support by the local governments and a lack of confidence. So we have the obligation of disseminating the information and to make the knowledge easy for the local people, societies, government. So the information should be more powerful than what they are hearing outside. So at the European level, we are paying a lot of attention to this question, and in the next weeks, we are going to publish a good practices manual. So how we could use, create this support, social support. And number 4 is to facilitate this grid injection. Many plants are injecting in the gas grid, but in Spain, I think the most of the plants that depends on the projects, but in other countries, the responsibilities and the injection costs are not well spread. Maybe we could learn also from another countries that they are doing that greatly. And the last point is valorizing the core products. We were talking about the biogenic CO2 and the digested because it could add a lot of value to European Union and also to the profitability of the biogases. I think it will be very important also that at the end of this Congress that we could take home some ideas about concrete actions, specific actions, not only ideas that are very important as well, but about how to have this social and administration support, and also the importance of having great messages and talking to national companies that could have this social and government support in the national level. So the future of this sector, of course, is launching and is not going to be built tomorrow, but we need to build it right now. Thank you so much.